Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4 o'clock and it's a Council of Brant special council meeting. Attendance has been taken, noting that Councillor Kyle is not here and Councillor Oakley is not here. Everyone else is in attendance. Moving on to number 2 on the agenda, which is just the approval of the agenda. It's a special meeting, so we're not going to add anything to the agenda at this point. Councillor McAlpine?
Moved by myself and second by Councillor Howes that the County of Brant Special Council meeting agenda July 23rd, 2024 be approved.
All those in favor of the agenda? Thank you. Opposed? There's no one. Which takes us to number 3 on the agenda, which is the declaration of pecuniary interest. I can't imagine that anyone at the table has any.
Recording in progress.
It's going to be one of those days. Thank you. Which takes us to number 4 on the agenda, which is delegations. And that is a report noting that this is a public meeting. I am going to declare the public meeting open now. And then I'm going to call on, who's going to speak to the first one? It's Michael? Is that right? Michael, you're here? Yeah. Right here, yeah. You can move that podium up or down depending on what's comfortable for you. If I can get a motion to a mover just to get it on the floor, Councillor Pierce, Councillor Coleman, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Mr. Pierce.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if this delegation is going to be longer than 10 minutes, but I'd be willing to put the motion forward to give the extra time.
I believe it is going to be longer than 10 minutes, so we can get a motion seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor to extend the time? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thanks for the opportunity to present our report on the third concession municipal drain for your consideration today. I do have a little PDF presentation that I'm going to follow along, and if that is put on the screen, then you'd have the opportunity to follow along as well. Don't know if you want me to get going or just wait a second. That's right, exactly. It should be a presentation folder. Okay. So just to get started, I'm going to go through the authority of our report, or the authority to prepare the report. So Headway is appointed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act at the September 28th, 2021 council meeting. The notice of the request for improvement was for changing the course of the drainage works, and that's specifically to realign the section of the drain that parallels Watts Pond Road to accommodate the reconstruction of that section of Watts Pond Road. I have an image here of the project location. The location of the project is roughly northwest, in the northwest part of Brant County, just northwest of Paris itself. The roads that are involved include, oh great. I will take you to, all right, this slide here. So I was just referring to the slide to the left. That blue shaded area represents our watershed boundary, and generally you can see within that watershed, Ayr Road, Nith Road, and Watts Pond Road are affected by this project. Mainly Watts Pond Road, who basically were the initiators for the reconstruction of that road. And if you were to follow Watts Pond Road eastbound, you'd come into Paris, or out of Paris westbound. Next slide is our public engagements. So we had an on-site virtual meeting on March 10th, 2022. Following that was an information meeting on November 29th, 2022. And we also circulated a maintenance package as a result of the information meeting on December 30th, 2022. Feedback we got from that maintenance package circulation required us to go back to the drawing board a bit and do a little bit of investigating on upgrading a couple other components of the drainage system. So we went back and did that. Then we presented those findings at a second information meeting that we held on March 7th, 2024. Our findings in general during our investigation include So the section of the existing open ditch along Watts Pond Road, originally constructed in 1967, is too close to the road, and that's been causing erosion of the side slopes, putting the road into jeopardy, and it also transports sediment to downstream sections of the open ditch. The existing tile drains are almost 60 years old as well, which were originally constructed under the 1967 report. The 1967 drain report, it did not include individual assessment schedules for the individual drainage components, and it didn't include any sub-watershed boundaries for the components as well, which included main drain closed branch A and for branch B. Furthermore, the configurations of branch A and branch B after they were constructed were not the same as they were proposed in the drain report, and that makes it difficult for the drainage superintendent to maintain, for example, a tile drain when it's actually been constructed as part of an open drain, which was this case in branch A of this drain. Parts of main drain open go through wetlands, and the main drain closed currently outlets into one of those wetland areas. The watershed area is approximately 866 acres, or in other words, about 351 hectares. And that consists primarily of agricultural lands, part woodlots, wetlands, roads, and residential properties. So based on those findings, our recommendations will include relocating a section of the existing open ditch of main drain open approximately 112 meters in length, further south and away from Watts Pond Road, and on average, that movement will be about 2 to 3 meters south from the existing alignment. We recommend that no work is required on main drain open aside from the ditch relocation along Watts Pond Road. We recommend new maintenance schedules be provided for the main drain open and closed, as well as for branch A. We recommend the lower end of branch A be reconstructed as an open ditch. Just to give you a little bit of background, branch A in the 1967 road was to be a tile drain. They constructed it all as a tile drain except for the bottom 65 meters, which was for some reason constructed as an open ditch, and it's been left that way all this time. So we're going to make improvements to branch A, the open portion of it, and incorporate those improvements under the Drainage Act. Branch B, we recommend be abandoned under Section 19 of the Drainage Act, and the main drain open be abandoned upstream of an existing berm on the Scott property. We abandon that under Section 19 of the Drainage Act as well. This plan is just an overall watershed plan showing you more or less the configuration of the drains. It's a bit hard to see, but that dark line kind of in the lower right corner of the image that stands out from the other lines, that represents the open portion of main drain. And there's a little green box that you can see that's leading to the section along Watts Pond Road. You can see a little section of drain there paralleling the road. That's basically the portion of this drain that's mostly affected by this drain report. There are some improvements to branch A proposed as indicated, but 95% of the work is going to be along Watts Pond Road in that parallel section. This is just a little detail or a blow-up of that section of Watts Pond Road to give you an idea of the work proposed. That hatched in kind of aqua blue line, that's the proposed relocated section of drain. The existing portion you probably can't see, but it's just a bit further north between the road and that aqua section. So again, we're moving it about 2 or 3 meters south away from the road, which will help provide stability to the banks of the road, as well as to the ditch itself. Our estimated project cost, we estimate the total project cost to be $375,200. That consists of allowances, construction costs, which include the provisional items of construction, meetings, correspondence, design, basically our engineering to prepare the drain report. There's a very small portion of those costs to dedicate to the environmental consultations or approvals, which have been given, and a portion of those costs for our preparation of the contract documents, the administration, supervision, and inspection of construction, as well as the contingencies, interest, and net HST. If you added all those components up together, you get $375,200. The biggest portion of that pie goes to the construction costs, which is approximately 60% of the total. The assessment of those costs, or rather the proposed distribution of those costs, I've got a little bit of a summary here. In the drain report, there's a broken down assessment schedule showing each property's individual assessment as well as the roads, but this is just a quick glance. So the municipal lands, or in other words, the roads basically that are involved in this project, are paying about 88% of the cost, or about $31,000. The private non-agricultural lands, like small severed lots, they're paying about $324. and the private agricultural lands are contributing $44,000, or in other words, about 12% towards 375,200. And you can see how that's broken down in the pie chart here left. And just to kind of finish it off, we have some photos of the existing system. The blue dash line represents the existing ditch along Watts Pond Road that we're proposing to move further south. To move further south, in the left image would be moving the ditch further left, and the flow would be going down the page. So you can see there are sections that are pretty tight against the road. It does meander, so we are going to effectively straighten out and move it further south away from the road. This is an image of an existing culvert that was actually, I think it was just replaced within probably the last 2 years or so. And that represents more or less the upper point of the commencement of work. So from this point downstream, about 112 meters, is a section of ditch we'll be relining. We won't be doing any work on this culvert itself or the area within a few meters of it. But the realigned ditch will match up better with the alignment of this culvert as well. And this is the image to your left. It's another image of the main drain open. This will be the proposed top end of the main drain. Right now, the main drain open portion actually flows through that berm that I've circled in the red there. And upstream of that is the portion that goes through the wetland. That's the section we're proposing to abandon. This is a section through the wetland. Due to just difficulty of it being maintained, it being a wetland, not being able to go in there and dig a ditch or improve a ditch through a wetland. So this is effectively the top end of the new main drain open. And on the right, the images of the main drain closed. And as I referred to earlier, main drain closed does outlet into a wetland. You can see it is rather wet, and also the banks contain some water as well. And the last two images here are just of branch A, one standing in the ditch, facing upstream towards the tile outlet. So that's the section of 65-meter section we'll be improving. We'll provide more trapezoidal cross-section. And the image on the right shows the tile outlet of branch A into the open portion, and we'll provide improvements around that tile outlet pipe and in terms of bank stability, riprap detection, to improve the stability of the entire system. That concludes my presentation for today, and I'd be happy to take any questions from anybody if they have any.
Thanks, Michael. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience regarding the report? Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Michael, when you spoke of the open drain there on Watts Pond Road, you're going to be moving it to the south away from the road. Is it going to be completely on the other side of that tree line, or what happens to those trees?
No, it'll still be within that, within that tree line. There's quite a bit of a slope that goes up that road,
Right.
past the ditch. We won't be putting it on the other side of that. The land is quite a bit higher, so there'll be some clearing along Watts Pond Road to accommodate the widening, but it won't be on the other side of it.
Okay, so no trees need to come out?
Well, trees do need to come out along that bank to accommodate that. Yeah, but I don't believe the whole slope requires clearing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. At the beginning of your presentation, you were illustrating the schedule of engagement with the public.
Yes.
And as I recall, it's been a year or two since the landowners have been in communication from you. Will there be an update communicated to them on this currently?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, they've been updated. The last update was the information meeting that we had in just a couple of months ago. I think it was in May of 2024. And then after that, we take any normally the typical process is we take any questions or concerns from that point, incorporate them into the report if we can, and then file the drain report with the county or the township for processing. So by the time we file the report, hopefully all the questions have been answered and any of the issues have been ironed out. So there's not much need to provide a further update because the final drain report is more or less a reflection of what was proposed at the last public engagement meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll to Michael. Michael, you're proposing to abandon some sections of the drain. Does that mean then that its function is no longer required?
Not necessarily, but that section of those drains get reverted back to the landowners on which the drain is on their property. They can maintain them, they can still use them. In the case of main drain open, the section that was abandoned was through a wetland. And there has been, as far as I understand, there's been difficulties in maintaining that section because it's always wet. It is a wetland. so there didn't seem to make much sense in maintaining that section through the Drainage Act. Branch B was a tile system. In 1967, it was supposed to be a tile system in the report. To be honest, we're not sure where that tile system is. There seems to be an open ditch in place of where that tile we expected to be. And that drain only served one lot. One of the questions we got after the first information, or after that mail out, was, can you give us an estimate on replacing Branch B? We did that to the landowner, and they weren't interested in replacing that. And it only served basically his land. So at that point, we decided there wasn't much need to maintain that as well under the Drainage Act, and just abandon that and revert that to the landowner's discretion.
So,
Sure. And sorry, I forgot to introduce Steve Brickman from our office. He's the engineer that authored the report, and he's here to provide support if necessary.
Yeah, with the mayor's permission, if I can just add one more point to the abandonment. What that abandonment actually is doing is it's stripping the county of the liability of maintaining that system. Because that system was really never constructed in the way that it was intended to be in the first place, finally now that the county is being relieved of that liability through this abandonment process, basically. So I just wanted to add that one.
thank you. Just a brief follow-up, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
Yeah,
Miller?
so as I understand it, then we're not removing any active functionality, so we're not going to get a complaint from a resident saying, I used to have a drain and now I don't, and council, you're on the hook for it.
No, I don't think that would be, excuse me, I don't think that would be the case, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Bell, or Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A week and a half ago, we had 100-year rain event.
Sorry?
A week and a half ago, we had a 100-year rain event.
Yes.
And that was the third one in the last 11 years. When all said and done, and the improvements are made, is it robust enough to handle that?
As far as the design goes, the design storm, we didn't have necessarily a design criteria in itself. As far as the design goes, we've reviewed the design that was prepared for the county. I think it was in 2017, and we've confirmed that design would be suitable for Drainage Act purposes. Normally, drains under the Drainage Act aren't designed for such storms because it just becomes uneconomical to design an open ditch under the Drainage Act for a 100-year storm, or a tile system, for example. So that wasn't necessarily a design criteria. So Steve, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Sure. Sorry. What I would say, if during a 100-year event, it wouldn't surprise me if there would be maintenance required following that. It wouldn't be a failure, though. It wouldn't be a redo of the entire system, but it would not surprise me if maintenance were required.
Okay, I appreciate that, and it's not specific to this drain per se. We're doing a lot of drainage work here in the county, but I know at my place we got 12 inches of rain over 8 days, and I thought, we're doing all this drainage work, and I wonder if it's robust enough. But that's not, you're not engineering it to that standard.
No, that's typically not a design standard for drains under the Drainage Act. For a tile drainage system, it's not even close, and for an open ditch, which are usually can accommodate quite a bit more water, I still wouldn't say it would be designed to do 100-year drainage.
Okay, because this year I'm seeing for the first time, I haven't seen it in a while, is crops drowned out, in the low, and I haven't seen that in quite a while. So okay, thank you.
More questions from council? Councillor Chambers.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, the lands drained by the ditch that is being abandoned will still be drained by the main drain that's not abandoned. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the assessment will still apply, only be attached to the main drain, to the lands that are drained by the lands that the drain that is being abandoned.
If I understand correctly through you, Mr. Mayor, the lands that previously would drain into that section of main drain open that we are abandoning are still assessed towards, well, if they're draining through main drain closed, they're still assessed towards main drain closed. And those waters still enter the upper end of main drain open, albeit further downstream than what's main drain open now, so they would be assessed towards it. In this case, since most of the work is for the road works, there's very little assessment for the upstream lands towards the reconstruction of the drain along Watts Pond Road. In the future, though, if in the maintenance schedule that we provided, any works along main drain open that would be considered typical maintenance would be assessed to all those lands upstream of that, which would include lands that would previously drain through that section we'd abandoned. I'm not sure if that answered your question or not, but.
Are there any other questions from council? Seeing none, we recognize that this is a public meeting. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? Does anyone want to come up and speak to the delegation? Questions? I'll ask for the second time. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience that wants to speak to the delegation? I'll ask for the third time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the delegation? Seeing none, I will declare this public meeting closed. And there's a recommendation in front of us. It's been on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor to receive? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Which takes us to 4.2 on the agenda, which is the engineers for the Bishopsgate Road municipal drain. Who's going to be presenting for that? If you just state your name and who you represent, please. And again, a motion to go over 10 minutes, please, for the speaker, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Pierce, all those in favor to go over the 10 minutes. You have extra time if you need it. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. I'm Chris Thompson from RJ Burnside, here with Paul McIntyre. So Burnside was appointed under Section 41C of the Drainage Act to investigate Bishopsgate Road from the area of Elizabeth Avenue south to the abandoned railway and from the 8th Concession Road to the abandoned railway for the purpose of legal outlet. Upon review, the existing topography is generally depressional and there's no real defined roadside drainage ditch. Currently, there are 2 existing developed industrial commercial lots along the east side of Bishopsgate Road that are serviced with stormwater management facilities designed to retain the 100-year storm event. The proposed Bishopsgate municipal drain is a combination of channel and pipe system designed to service agricultural and commercial lands to the south of Burford. In total, the watershed area contributing to the Bishopsgate Road drain is approximately 259 acres. An initial on-site meeting was held in September of 2023 with a follow-up information meeting held in April of 2024. During the information meeting, the watershed boundary, cost distribution, and reason for the municipal drain were discussed with the stakeholders. The general feedback from the meeting was to proceed to a final solution that would provide an outlet for the proposed developments during the 2 through 100-year rainfall events, as well as during Hurricane Hazel. Subsequent to the information meeting, discussion and meetings with individual landowners and their representatives concluded the need for a subsurface pipe to provide a sufficient outlet for the B&B Landco Inc. property and the 2857518 Ontario Limited properties. The proposed works includes the construction of 3 branches. Branch A can be seen with the blue line on the plan shown. Is comprised of approximately 1,490 meters of channel construction, the filling of a pond, including the clearing and grubbing of approximately 20 trees on the Ontario Limited Telephone City Aggregates property, as well as the installation of 2 900 millimeter diameter HDP laneway culverts on the Roswell Concrete property, complete with laneway restoration. It also includes the realignment of any affected Grand Bridge Energy hydro poles. Branch B, which is also an open drain, can be seen as the pink line. It includes approximately 272 meters of channel construction, as well as the realignment of any Grand Bridge Energy Inc. hydro poles. Branch C, which can be shown as the green line on the plan, includes the installation of approximately 432 meters of 450 millimeter diameter HDP pipe, as well as the installation of 6 1,200 millimeter diameter manholes. In summary, this report's objective is to provide a legal and sufficient outlet for the proposed and future developments along Bishopsgate Road for and during the regional event.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I do need to declare this a public meeting so that the public can speak after council gives their remarks. Do you have any other?
I would pass it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for
All right.
questions.
Does council have any questions for the delegation, the presenter? Seeing none, we'll take it to the audience. Does anyone have any questions about? Yeah, can you come up and state your name and your address, please? Yeah, come on up. There's a process. We got to use it.
My name's Don Spearenberg. I'm the owner of the agricultural land, and those properties were sold off of mine. What I don't understand is we've got gravel and sand. I've lived there my whole life. I've never seen a drop of water run off that property. It's sand and gravel. I understand for a ditch, but there's also a dry pond that's not even mentioned on our property that's deeper than all the other ones, and I've never seen water in that. The water flow, it's wrong. I farm those farms. It's wrong. There's dips, there's rolling land, there is no water washouts, there's no ditches, gullies, whatever. The water goes down. It doesn't make any sense from what I'm looking at to what I hear. And the cost for me makes no sense for ground that doesn't need to be tiled, that has water drainage of its own. Anyways, those are my points. You understand that?
Thank you. What's the actual address on the property you're talking about?
1312 Golden Street West.
Right.
13 what? 18. Oh,
18. There you go. She just moved you down the road.
she just moved me.
There you go. Mr. Walton's going to come and speak to you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Through the mayor to council and to the audience, Mr. Spearenberg, I wouldn't disagree with anything you said, but I'm the one that petitioned for this drain, and there's a specific reason for that. These lands are going to change when they're developed. Okay, there's going to be hard surface on the majority of it, big grooves. The runoff is going to change immensely. Those potholes where the water disappears right now are all going to disappear. During the development of the plans for the next phase of this development, we talked with the engineers, a couple of them are in the audience here, and we talked about what's going to happen with their outlet, and it was very uneconomical for them to design the stormwater management for this to accommodate what would happen in anything more than a 100-year storm. Now, I know that's something that happens infrequently, but as Councillor Miller has already said today, we've had, potentially like 300-year storms in the last how many years? It's in the news. Toronto, 3 big storms in the last 7 or 8 years, which have caused billions of dollars in flooding. There's no infrastructure here to accommodate that. And as the road superintendent, I felt it, and since no one else was petitioning, I thought we have to come up with an outlet here which will service these lands through the future. So when we have those storms and it can't be accommodated on site, that there will be a flow of land to take it to a sufficient outlet. And that's the cost of doing business when we're going to do this development. So I'm pleased with the outcome of this. The other thing, as the county, we're actually paying a special assessment for lands to the west because the eventuality of them developing within the limits of Burford are sometime in the future. And again, that land is all rolling, and it's got the depressions where the water does not run off right now. It soaks into the ground. But when that is smoothed out and put storm sewers in, it's going to outlet through this ditch as well, and there'll be more work on that. So I think this is a good plan, and back it up, and those are the reasons why it's been petitioned for. Thank you.
Would you like to speak for the second time? No.
To me, it seems like it's future development, but for the present, it's insignificant what it's going to do. There'll be no water will pass down this drainage system, and to drain back into that gravel pit, it just doesn't make any sense at all. It seems like a lot of cost for no reward. Like for me to drain and to speculate what might happen, we've had close to 30 inches of rain since May 5th, and we haven't got a puddle on the farms. And a puddle in the ditches in front of Triggers and Bows or those other properties. The water does not run. And having these people to pay for something that's future development doesn't make any sense. It's not equitable or fair to the rest of us.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room want to speak? Sir, come on up. Come on up. And again, just your name and your address, please.
It's David Lansborough, representing our numbered company that owns the store, 340 Bishopsgate Road. I, like Don, have had trouble finding a puddle on our property in the last 2 weeks from the existing or the previous rainstorms. The stormwater management pond that we currently have on our property is, well, really not gathering water at all from these last 3 storms. Part of my issue with this plan is that pond is now part of the solution for the property to the north of us. So if it is a once in 100-year storm plan, which was, I believe, in 2015 or 14 when our site plan was approved, it now complies to the once in 250-year storm. It's going to be the overflow or catch basin for all the properties to the north. I really don't want to overspeak that some of the other folks and what they're being assessed for, more concerned about us, and that if it is indeed going to take place, that our pond be sufficiently covered for liability, for maintenance, protection if somebody winds up in it. If there is a catastrophic event, it does happen to fill up. It's quite deep. I can't ever see that happening. I do agree more with Don than the possibility of ever being water in it. In the last 2 weeks, our property is drained within hours of the storms ending. So there's no puddles in our parking lot, no puddles in the stormwater management pond. I personally have a problem with the assessment of our property being assessed for any value because of some of those reasons. We're not gathering water, and we're part of the solution for the properties to the north, and our property complies with everything we were made aware of at the time of our site plan being completed. I don't think that having an assessment fee afterwards and paying taxes is fair. I think that if you have an improvement, it should be derived from the property taxes paid. If there is a new development, that's a different argument in the development fees, and that's not something that I'm faced with currently. I hope that makes sense, that we could be possibly, I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy to be in on the discussion that our stormwater management pond could be part of the solution for this plan. But in saying that, I would like some assurances about the liabilities, the maintenance. Does it need to be fenced? Is that a shared liability? Is that a county, our numbered company liability? Is it liability to any of the other properties that are draining into the pond? And has that been thought of or considered? I think that covers most of what I was thinking.
Thank you. Mr. Walton.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council and into the audience. I'll speak to a couple of things and I'll let the engineers take over after that. In a perfect world, this outlet would have been constructed before any of the development happened here. And we would have done it under a plan of subdivision and the infrastructure that needed to be there. That's not what we're dealing with. 2 properties developed here ahead of that. They developed their own infrastructure to allow them to go at the time. And now when all of the properties are going to develop, we need to come up with a scheme that will accommodate all of them, which then brings in a situation we're dealing with two properties that are existing. Yes, that your pond is being incorporated as part of the works. For maintenance and liability, it will be part of the drain. So the county will take it, so that it actually is an advantage to you. That'll be part of the cost of the drain. I'm not going to speak to the whole liability, what happens when there's an accident, the pond's full and whatever, because those are things that go in front of the courts, and we don't have any control over what happens when those things happen. We certainly carry a good amount of liability insurance to deal with those things when they happen, though. And all commercial owners carry insurance as well. So I'm not going to get into that, but definitely the maintenance costs and the like are part of the drain. It will be taken care of by the county and then distributed amongst the landowners. So that's where it's at. As this area develops, it is going to change, and we can't talk about what happened in this last storm because we got lots of areas here which are absorbing the big amounts of rain that we had in different ways than they will in the future when most of that is hard surface. So it is going to change a lot when all of those lands are developed. So I'm not sure whether I answered all the questions or whether or not the engineer should answer the rest of them.
So if I could just address Mr. Spearnsburg's concerns, it's unfortunate the lay of the land when we surveyed the properties. Part of your farm lays towards where the outlet of this drain is. So under strict drainage rules, that is within the watershed, that's accessible. And we have to look at what happens when everything fills up and the groundwater is done, or it's frozen and the groundwater the ground can't accept those waters. So it is unfortunate, David, but that's Dawn, but that's what has happened in your particular case. David, I think Robert has talked about your property and how that has been affected by the drain. Your property has a very large and very deep stormwater management pond already in place, and it's right in line with the outlet that we're trying to produce. So in order for us to deal with that, we would have to fill it in and try to make some other arrangements. So this was the most economical, and by giving allowances for your property for that use of that pond that's in place right now, we feel it is the best solution for yourselves as for the whole watershed.
Do you want to come back up and speak again?
I'm not in disagreement with the plan in the use of it. I am openly in disagreement with the charge that we paid our development fees. We complied with everything that the county wanted at the time, and we can only do the best with what we're faced with at the time. And I do agree with that as well. However, to come afterwards again and ask for basically another development fee when all development fees by our numbered company have been paid, I just don't feel that's right to come back to us again. Especially since, unless I've misread something from our past meeting, there is really no construction to be done on our property, is there? So at that point, to still be faced with it, if I remember from the spreadsheet, $20,000, I'm at a bit of a loss where my benefit is when I'm providing so much benefit to everyone else or to a large portion of the developments. I hope that makes sense to everyone.
It does make sense. Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room? Come on up, sir. Just state your name, please, and your address for the clerk.
Scott Roswell, 348 Bishopsgate Road for Roswell Concrete Products. I agree with Mr. Lansborough and Mr. Spearenberg there. And for what it's worth, during those last storms, we have a lot of heavy equipment. So even though it's granular in the back of our property, it's hard packed. And we had a little bit of ponding, and within hours it was gone. It is summertime, so as the representative mentioned, wintertime's a little bit different. But my question is, I've done enough projects to know that most of them don't come in on budget. What's going to happen to the stakeholders' costs if it over budgets?
Thank you. Mr. Walton, do you want to speak to that?
Through the mayor to council and to the audience. So under the Drainage Act, the costs of the project are prorated, whether they're up or down, based on the costs that are there. On this one, there's the one branch, which is a special assessment to a couple of properties. So the specific cost of that will go to those properties, up or down, however that goes. And there is a protection under the Drainage Act. Council cannot accept a tender that's more than 133% of the engineer's estimate without going back to the landowners and talking to them before it's awarded. So that's just the way it works, and that's the way the Drainage Act is set up.
Thank you. Are there anyone else? Is there anyone else in the audience that wants? Do you want to come back up? Okay.
What I'd like to know is how I'm assessed as agricultural land for the runoff. And I'd like that runoff map checked because, in my opinion, what the map that they showed, it doesn't run that way. There's a dry pond. It's deep. It's low. It doesn't run that way. And I'd like to know how I'm assessed that kind of value.
So back to Don's comment about his property. Again, we surveyed the property, and whether that water sits there in this type of weather conditions and percolates into the ground, groundwater flows in the same direction as surface water flows. So that water eventually, even if it percolates into the ground, gets to this outlet through the system. Whether or not it gets there right at the moment when the ground's dry and the watershed will absorb that or not, we have to look at the surface contours and where it would go when you have everything that fills up. So again, under frozen conditions, when it fills up and it spills out, it would spill out in the direction of our drain. It's unfortunate that his little bit of agricultural land was captured in this, as opposed to the rest, which is industrial or future industrial land. But that's just the way the land lays. And it's assessed agricultural as opposed to industrial and commercial. So industrial commercial, we factor all that land 3 and 4 times more out runoff than we would for agricultural land. So he has the base of the assessment logic. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
A couple questions based on what we've heard. The Spearenburg lands, they're eligible for the provincial grant, yes?
Yes, they would.
But not the industrial?
No.
Okay, so there's a bit of a break there. I wanted to ask, for the Landsborough property, since they have the stormwater management pond there, they put it in. Was there any allowance or credit given to them for their costs based on the fact that they had that existing and it's going to be part of the new drain?
Yes. So we took a look at the pond that's on there right now, and we looked at everybody, and everybody is being basically asked to do the 100-year design storm. So all the new properties are doing a 100-year design storm, retaining that, and then this system will pick up the amount over top of the 100-year up to the 250-year storm. So we took the size of the pond that would be full at the 100-year storm size and gave allowances to the Landsborough property for that. So basically purchased that, made it part of the municipal drain for future maintenance purposes.
Okay.
So that's the allowances that are awarded to that property.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go back to the public. Does anyone have anything else they want to say to the presenters? You want to come back up? Okay, come on back up, and then Councillor Chambers, you're after that.
the calculation is a purchase of land. The price, I believe, was based at 100,000 an acre. Currently is farmland. I think it's selling for more than that. I think impact tax is at least 50% higher than that. And current real estate values are several $100,000 higher than that. So I'm not sure that we've been assessed a fair price for the area that's being essentially given up. And yet we're still going to be taxed on it, if I'm not mistaken, as well going forward. Correct? Again, I feel that charging us using our land and continuing to tax us on it is unfair.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
I don't want to interrupt the public portion, so I'm quite prepared to wait, and I should wait until after the public their say.
The horse is out of the stables with Councillor Miller. I don't think there's anyone else that wants to come up, is there? Oh, you want to come back up? Okay, come on back up. Sorry. I thought you were waving to the guy behind you. Okay.
Just another comment on the tender process. Can we, the stakeholders, be apprised of the tender process during the tender process, just to keep it all transparent? And is it possible to request, I mean, at 33% on $1.4 million, you're under between $400,000 and $500,000 extra, which would be put to the stakeholders. Could we request that at 15% overage that we are consulted?
Mr. Walton, do you want to comment on that?
Through the mayor to council and to the audience, the 133% is part of the Drainage Act. That's a statutory requirement, is what we have to do. County works under all kinds of tenders and all kinds of things. Generally, the only time we would consult with stakeholders on a project where it's part of an agreement. Like, it becomes very difficult to do projects. So do we have a vote of the people if they want to do it or whatever? It just doesn't work that way. Under the Drainage Act, we go through a process on all of these, every one of them. We've had 2 new ones tonight. How many have we had in the last period of time? 6 or 7 other reports just recently. This is the way we do them. And what is interesting in this one, though, your 1.4 million or whatever that isn't the total cost. Like, the allowances are fixed. I'm not sure on most of these projects whether we actually even charge out, I'll have to check with finances whether we actually charge out interest, that financing piece of it. I'm not sure we even do that. We've got the engineering fees and whatever. They aren't subject to the tendering process. They're the actuals. And we're going to make sure that they don't come in over. I don't see actually a reasonable way to do this besides to follow the process that we do for all other projects, which are set up the way we do it, and we try and be as fair to everybody as we can by getting the tenders out and at the right times, trying to make sure we get good competition on them, and making good decisions when we get them in. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Walton. You want to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification. The 133% is based on the construction estimate, and that's 664,000. So that's the number that we'll be looking at for that 133% overage.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? I'll ask for the second time. Are there any other questions from the audience to the presenter? I'll ask for the third time. Is there any other questions for the presenter from the audience? Seeing none, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the diagram with the drainage basin with the yellow and the green colors.
Can we have that diagram put back up, please? Where is the diagram? Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
think I heard that the purpose of the drainage work that was petitioned by the county is to accommodate for development. And the yellow area is land being developed. And I believe our official plan, that is the boundary for employment lands. The green area is still designated as agricultural. So that land is not going to be developed in the near future for employment lands. But the land on the other side of Bishopsgate, below the railroad tracks, is designated in the official plan for development for employment lands, as well as the portion above the railroad tracks. And the railroad tracks goes at that's that angle that you see there. That's designated for residential development. So my question is, looking at the drainage basin, why is the Bishopsgate Road the boundary of the drainage basin when that is just an artificial road boundary? And if we are looking at the drainage basin, I'm sure that it doesn't go straight down Bishopsgate. It doesn't encroach on the other side of Bishopsgate. And using the same argument that you used to bring the Sparrenburg lands into the assessment area, why isn't the lands on the west side of Bishopsgate treated the same way? Because if they're not, then Sparrenburg has a pretty good argument that including the agricultural lands, which are not going to be developed in the distant future, should be classified the same as the west side of Bishopsgate, which isn't included in the assessment for the drainage works to provide for outlet for developed lands.
So through you, Mayor, there is a watershed area to the west side of Bishopsgate Road that would come to this outlet in the future if there was a crossing on Bishopsgate Road. And then Rob had mentioned that there is an actual special benefit to the county that takes that land into consideration. So in the future, this drainage outlet has been sized for that land to the west. There would have to be a major crossing of Bishopsgate Road to get that water to the drain, and that would be for future. And there's been an assessment to the county for that in the future, and it's built into the report.
Councillor Chambers, follow up.
But the lands themselves are not owned by the county. They're owned by other individuals. And if they are in the drainage basin, then you're almost saying that Bishopsgate Road is a dike that nothing can cross and it shouldn't be included, but that's not how the drainage basins work. Because you've got the railroad tracks there, that is a dike as well. So I'm just trying to understand why the green area is included in the drainage works and not the same basin on the west side of Bishopsgate.
So through your mayor, again, we're looking to the future for future development of this area of the county. And when and if that area is developed, the only outlet practical for that would be through this drain. But to get there, you would have to have a major crossing of Bishopsgate Road. So right now, Bishopsgate Road is the dam. It doesn't allow that water to flow through there. And but future, there's no sense to build this drain without taking that into consideration. So we've taken that into consideration, that lands to the west will drain this way in the future when they're developed. And that has been a special assessment of the county at this point to get the outlet of this drain built deep enough and big enough to handle that land in the future.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. So just for clarification, I thought you had said earlier that it would be surface water and the water in the ground that would make its way to this drain. So I'm trying to understand why water on the west side underground wouldn't make its way through the drain.
So there is a pocket on the west side that is substantially lower. And when that is graded out through development of that side, this is the outlet for it. So there is a pocket on the west side of Bishopsgate Road that's even lower than our outlet. But again, when it's developed, this is the only outlet for those lands. Legal outlet, let's say, legal outlet.
Councillor Chambers.
Sorry, just on that, what you've just said, there are areas on the Spearenburg lands that are in the green area that, as Don said, are pockets that drain into, just like on the west side that you just talked about. So why are they included and the west side not?
Because those areas are higher. So there is one pocket on the west side of Bishopsgate's Road that is deeper than anything that we have in our design. So when that is graded out and when that is developed, that'll be filled in, and that all those drainage will come to this point at the old railroad tracks, and there will have to be a crossing built under Bishopsgate Road to take that water into the system. But we're looking to the future, trying to give an outlet for future design.
And just a final question, for future development, how is that assessed on those properties?
It's assessed to the county at this point. So the county can decide on how they deal with that assessment in the future, whether it's part of your development process, but it's assessed to the county at this point so that this can be built.
Sounds like the old days when you couldn't figure it out, you just assessed it to the county and the taxpayers kind of made up for it. The Dodd reports are famous for that.
Obviously, we could have designed it without taking that into consideration. It would be a lot smaller drain.
Councillor Miller.
Okay, so just following up on that line of questioning then. So to be clear, this drain is oversized for what we're seeing here today because it's accounting for the part to the west. Is that correct?
The bottom end, yes. From where Bishopsgate Road crosses the old railroad tracks and down to our outlet in the gravel pit.
And that allowance has been assessed to the county.
That's right.
In terms of size, what would it be compared to what we see in front of us as far as the yellow and the blue on the west side? A half of it? Quarter?
Oh, it wouldn't be that much.
Wouldn't be much.
Chris, do you recall what the area?
The cross sections?
I don't. You don't have the area of the west side.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. The area of the west side was presented at the information meeting. I do not have it on me at this moment.
That's fine. One more question. This is a new drain. It's not. In other words, we're not improving an existing municipal drain. Does it make it more costly when we're doing new, or does it make it a little cheaper? Doesn't matter.
Well, not really. Through the mayor. What makes this one a little cheaper is that a lot of it is being constructed on the county road. So we're taking the county roadside ditch and improving it, widening it, and grading it. So there's no allowances given to the county road. If this drain was built off of the county road, we'd be giving allowances to all those properties for that. We'd be moving a lot more dirt to do that. So because it's a new drain or an existing drain, I don't know if there's any correlation between the cost.
I noticed in the line of questioning, we're questions about this, but also people are questioning about the municipal drain process, and I know that can be confusing too. So, okay, thank you for the answers.
Councillor House, and then back to Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a process question, I guess directed more to staff, I think. We've heard some interesting questions and compelling arguments from some of the landowners tonight. And what I think were some fair questions and concerns. If council supports the need for this change in drainage, do the landowners have an appeal process on the assessment part?
Yes, so through the mayor, tonight's meeting is a consideration of the report. If council agrees with the engineer's report and passes 2 readings on the bylaw, we would then send notices out to every assessed party as to the date of the quarter revision, which is when anyone can appeal their assessments. So what happens if the provisional bylaws is accepted is the design and the technical specifications of building the drain are fixed as per the report. And then there's the opportunity for anyone to question their assessment based on whatever the total amount is in there. And when that total amount is fixed by the provisional bylaw, the Court of Revision has the opportunity to change that number, the amounts that are assessed to that number. So it still has to add up to that number, but they can change around how it's assessed following the processes of the act.
Okay, thanks. Follow up, Mr. Mayor. So the short answer, I think, is we can support the engineer's report and not necessarily be getting into how the costs are shared. That can be relooked at separately later, correct?
That's correct. In fact, council themselves in passing the provision bylaw has no opportunity to look at the assessments. They can only look at them through the Court of Revision can look at them through appeals, and then there's actually a further appeal on that to the Ontario Drainage Tribunal if they're not satisfied with the Court of Revision.
Councillor Chambers.
Councillor Howes was one step ahead of me, and the engineer is 2 steps ahead of me, because I was going to just suggest for the people that are here, the reason we're not asking questions about the assessment is this is not the time to do that. The time to do that is at the Court of Revision, and that's why we did get into the apportionment of the assessments. Since I was just going to make that point.
Any other questions from council, concerns? I find it a very uncomfortable place to be right now, listening to things that make sense from the audience. And talking about properties that have been identified as agricultural, and I am mandated to save agriculture, and then we talk about, well, when agriculture gets changed and we decide to develop it. So yeah, we're recognizing pieces of property that are agricultural, and that should make you feel better, and it doesn't make you feel better because we're going beyond that, and then we're saying, now we're talking about the days after we decide to take it away from you and redevelop it as something that's other than agriculture. So I find it very a very hard thing to support just because I would think the people in the room have got confidence in the council that we're going to try to protect their agricultural land for as long as we can, and then we're talking beyond that, and it's very uncomfortable. But with that being said, is there anybody else?
Recording stopped.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to add? Councillor Chambers?
I'll just add a comment. There is a drainage report in the similar area to this on Maple Avenue South in the former township of Burford that is kind of similar to this in many ways. It did go to the tribunal, and the property owner did make a compelling argument that the tribunal at that time accepted that his land did not contribute to the watershed in that it was in the watershed, but the drainage went into pockets and swales within the drainage area. And as such, that property was removed from the assessment of that particular drain. So there is some argument to be made when the Court of Revision happens.
That's great. That's good to know. Anything else? What does council want to do with this? Councillor Bell, you have it?
Yep. Put my specs on, I'll be able to see it.
Put your glasses on there so you can see what you're doing.
Don't need it for much, but I do need it for reading. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Howes, that the presentation from Chris Thompson, Engineering Assistant, RJ Burnside and Associates Limited, be received as information. And the council give 2 readings to the Bishopsgate Municipal Drain Bylaw and adopt the report as a provisional bylaw.
Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? So this is being received as information, knowing that there are different avenues of appeal and assessment. And Councillor Coleman and I last week, went to Birch Road and watched ditches that nobody wanted be put in, so there are things that people don't want that we think they do want, and we think that they need, and they don't think they need. And they said the same thing. They haven't had water in 30 years in their ditch or their culvert, and we hacked a big hole in their lawn and made it look terrible. And I think we're in the middle of repairing that. So sometimes things don't always appear the way we think they appear, and people don't want what we think they want. So this isn't over. It's just one step forward, and we've just taken it. So thank you, and thank you for coming out today to talk about it. We have nothing to go in camera for. We're going to do bylaws now, and Councillor McAlpine has them.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau that bylaw 5724 and 5724 and 76-24 be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading? Second reading, please, Councillor McAlpine.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau that the bylaw 5724, 7524 to 7624 be read a second time and all clauses and preambles be adopted.
All those, are there any questions for the second reading? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're only doing the second reading, is that right?
No, we do a third for one of them.
We're doing third? Okay. All those, do the third reading, please.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Garneau that bylaw 7624 be read the third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor, Councillor Pierce.
Mr. Mayor, I thought what Councillor Bell had read there, we're only supposed to do it 2 times.
That's what I thought.
I think.
Through your worship, the final bylaw reading is just to confirm the proceedings of council. He didn't read it for the 2 first ones. It's a separate motion. It's just for the final one, which is confirming the proceedings of council.
Okay, my apologies. I thought he had 76 wrapped into the other ones, but if he didn't, okay. So the third reading is just for 76, correct?
Yes.
Wait, the
first 2 had 2 readings.
That's correct. The third reading is just for 76.
Thank you. Sorry.
So we've had the third reading. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Which takes us to number 7 on the agenda, which is the next meeting is going to be July the 30th at 6 o'clock. And we don't really need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Coleman's going to give us one anyway, and then we're going to reconvene as a council at 6 o'clock. Thank you.